Mother Bear crashed the pharmacy window to grab baby medicine. What happened next was shocking. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The evening air hung heavy with moisture as thick clouds gathered above Maplewood, a small town where everyone knew everyone else's business. Rain had been threatening all day, and now the first fat drops began to splatter against the windows of Clearwater Pharmacy. Inside, Zara Whitfield wiped down the counter for the third time that hour, her eyes drifting to the clock above the prescription bottles. 8:30. Just 30 minutes until closing time. The pharmacy's fluorescent lights hummed softly, casting everything in a pale, clinical glow. Zara had been working here for 2 years now, ever since graduating from pharmacy school, and she knew every bottle, every pill, every cream on these shelves. The evening shift was usually quiet. Most people picked up their prescriptions during lunch breaks or right after work. By this time, Maplewood settled into its nightly routine of dinner preparations and television shows. A sudden movement outside caught her attention. Through the rain-streaked window, she could see something large moving between the parked cars in the lot. At first, she thought it might be Mrs. Henderson's Great Dane again, always getting loose and wandering the streets. But this shadow seemed different, bigger, more purposeful in its movement. Zara pressed her face closer to the glass, trying to make out what was moving in the growing darkness. The streetlight flickered, casting strange shadows that danced across the wet pavement. For a moment, everything was still. Then she saw it clearly. A massive brown bear was standing upright near the entrance, its dark eyes fixed directly on the pharmacy's front window. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Bears weren't completely unheard of in this area, but they usually stayed deep in the forest that bordered the town. They certainly didn't come into the business district, especially not at this time of evening. The bear dropped back down to all fours and began moving closer to the building. Its massive head swayed from side to side, as if it was searching for something specific. Zara's hand trembled as she reached for her phone. Should she call animal control? The police? Her mind raced through the emergency procedures she'd learned but never thought she'd need to use. The bear was now directly in front of the pharmacy, its nose pressed against the glass door. It was enormous, easily 6 feet tall at the shoulder, with fur that looked almost black in the dim light. What happened next made Zara's blood freeze in her veins. The bear reared up on its hind legs again and placed both massive paws against the glass. But instead of the aggressive posture she expected, there was something almost desperate in the way the animal pressed against the window. Its eyes weren't wild with hunger or rage. They were filled with something that looked impossibly like panic. The bear's breathing fogged the glass as it stared directly at Zara. For a moment that seemed to stretch forever, woman and beast looked at each other through the thin barrier of the window. Zara could see the bear's chest rising and falling rapidly, could almost feel the animal's distress radiating through the glass. This wasn't a predator looking for an easy meal. This was a creature in desperate need of something, and somehow it believed the pharmacy held the answer. Thunder rumbled overhead, and the rain began falling harder, drumming against the roof with increasing intensity. The bear stepped back from the window, water streaming from its fur, but its gaze never left the interior of the pharmacy. It began to pace back and forth in front of the building, occasionally stopping to press its nose against different sections of the glass, as if it was trying to locate something specific inside. Zara's training told her to call for help immediately, but something held her back. The bear's behavior was unlike anything she'd ever heard about. Wild animals didn't typically approach human buildings with this kind of focused determination. They didn't stare through windows with what looked like desperate hope in their eyes. Something was driving this animal to take enormous risks, to leave the safety of the forest and venture into human territory. As she watched, the bear suddenly stopped pacing. It had positioned itself directly in front of the children's medicine section, which was clearly visible through the large front window. The animal's eyes were fixed on the colorful bottles of infant fever reducers and pain relievers that lined the low shelves. Zara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening air. Was it possible that this bear somehow knew what those medicines were for? The bear raised itself up on its hind legs once more, this time placing both paws high on the window. The glass creaked under the pressure, and Zara realized with growing horror that the animal wasn't just looking anymore. It was testing the strength of the barrier between itself and what it needed. The bear's eyes met hers again, and in that moment, Zara saw something that would haunt her for the rest of her life. She saw the desperate love of a mother who would do anything, risk everything, to save her child. The sound of breaking glass shattered the evening silence like a gunshot. Zara screamed and threw herself backward as the bear's massive paw came crashing through the window. Shards of glass scattered across the floor like deadly diamonds, catching the fluorescent light and throwing it back in 1,000 different directions. The bear's arm swept through the opening, knocking over a display of cough drops and sending them rolling across the floor. But the bear wasn't attacking randomly. Even as Zara cowered behind the prescription counter, she could see the animal's movements were focused and deliberate. The bear was reaching specifically for the children's medicine shelf, its massive paw carefully avoiding the broken glass as it stretched toward the bottles of infant fever reducer. The security alarm began wailing, its piercing shriek mixing with the sound of rain and the bear's heavy breathing. Zara's hands shook as she fumbled for her phone, but she couldn't take her eyes off the scene unfolding before her. The bear had managed to grasp a small pink bottle of children's acetaminophen in its claws, holding it with surprising gentleness for such a massive creature. That's when Zara heard it, a sound that made her heart stop completely. From somewhere outside in the darkness, barely audible over the alarm and the storm, came the weak, pitiful crying of what could only be a cub. The sound was thin and desperate, the kind of cry that spoke of pain and sickness. It was coming from the direction of the woods behind the pharmacy, and it was getting weaker. The mother bear heard it too. Her head snapped toward the sound, and a low, anguished moan escaped her throat. She clutched the medicine bottle tighter and began backing away from the broken window, but her movements were frantic now, filled with the kind of panic that only a parent watching their child suffer could understand. Zara found herself standing up, no longer thinking about her own safety. "Wait!" she called out, her voice barely a whisper at first, then stronger. "Wait, please!" The bear stopped, its dark eyes fixing on Zara with an intensity that made her knees weak. For a moment, the two mothers looked at each other across the destroyed pharmacy, and Zara realized that she was looking at a reflection of herself. 2 years ago, when her own infant son had spiked a fever of 104 degrees in the middle of the night, she had driven 90 miles per hour to the emergency room, breaking every traffic law without a second thought. She had been willing to do anything, risk anything, to save her child. The bear's cub cried again, weaker this time, and the mother bear's body trembled with the effort of restraining herself from rushing back to her baby. But she was still watching Zara, as if she somehow understood that the human held knowledge that could help. "You don't know how much to give," Zara said softly, taking a small step forward. The bear's muscles tensed, but she didn't move away. "That medicine, it's for human babies. Your cub is different. You could hurt him if you give too much." The bear's eyes darted between Zara and the bottle in her paw, then back toward the sound of her suffering cub. Zara could see the internal struggle playing out across the animal's face. Every instinct was telling the bear to flee, to get back to her baby as quickly as possible. But some deeper understanding was keeping her here, telling her that she needed help. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the scene in stark black and white. In that brief moment, Zara saw something that made her gasp. There was another figure moving in the shadows beyond the parking lot. Someone was approaching the pharmacy, drawn by the sound of the alarm. She could make out the shape of a man walking quickly toward the building, and her heart sank as she realized what was about to happen. "Someone's coming," she whispered to the bear, not sure why she was warning her. "You need to go." But the bear had seen the approaching figure too, and instead of fleeing, she did something that shocked Zara to her core. The mother bear gently placed the medicine bottle on the ground just inside the broken window, then backed away slowly, never taking her eyes off Zara. It was a gesture of trust so profound that it brought tears to Zara's eyes. The footsteps outside grew louder, and Zara could hear a man's voice calling out, "Hello? Is everyone okay in there?" I saw the alarm lights flashing. The bear melted back into the shadows just as the front door chimed. Zara quickly kicked some of the broken glass over the medicine bottle, hiding it from view. A tall man in a rain-soaked jacket stepped inside, his eyes immediately going to the shattered window. "My God, what happened here?" he asked, pulling out his phone. "I'm calling the police." "No, wait," Zara said quickly, her mind racing. "I mean, yes, call them, but it wasn't what you think. It was an accident, the storm. A tree branch went through the window." The man looked at her skeptically, then at the window, then back at her. "A tree branch? There aren't any trees that close to the building." Zara's heart pounded as she struggled to come up with a believable explanation. But before she could speak again, the sound came again from the woods behind the pharmacy, the weak, desperate crying of a cub that was running out of time. The man heard it too, his head tilting as he tried to identify the sound. Is that a baby crying?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. The cub's cry came again, even weaker than before, and Zara felt something break inside her chest. She looked down at the medicine bottle hidden under the glass, then back at the man who was already dialing 911. In less than 5 minutes, this place would be crawling with police and animal control officers. The mother bear would either be captured or killed, and her cub would die alone in the woods. "Please," Zara said, grabbing the man's arm before he could complete the call. "Please don't call them yet. I need to tell you something, but you have to promise me you'll listen to the whole story before you make that call." The man hesitated, his finger hovering over the phone. "Ma'am, I think you might be in shock. We need to get you medical attention and report this break-in." "It wasn't a break-in," Zara said, her voice growing stronger. "It was a mother trying to save her baby." As if summoned by her words, the cub cried out again from the darkness. This time, the sound was so weak that they had to strain to hear it over the rain. The man's expression changed as he listened, and Zara saw the exact moment when he realized what they were hearing. "That's not a human baby," he said slowly. "No," Zara agreed. "It's not. But the mother who broke that window loves her baby just as much as any human mother loves hers, and right now, that baby is dying." The man stood frozen, his phone still in his hand, as the full weight of what Zara was telling him began to sink in. Outside, the storm was growing stronger, and somewhere in the dark woods, a mother bear was racing back to her cub with nothing but hope and determination to guide her. She had trusted a human with her greatest need, And now it was up to Zara to prove that trust hadn't been misplaced. But first, she had to convince this stranger that what he was about to witness was not a crime, but one of the most beautiful acts of love he would ever see. And she was running out of time to do it. The man stared at her for a long moment, rain dripping from his jacket onto the pharmacy floor. His name tag read Marcus Chen, Maplewood Veterinary Clinic, and Zara felt a surge of hope. A veterinarian would understand better than anyone what they were dealing with. "Dr. Chen," she said, reading his name tag. "You're a vet, you know animals. What I'm about to tell you is going to sound impossible, but I need you to believe me." Marcus pocketed his phone but kept his hand on it. "I'm listening, but I'm also calling for backup in 30 seconds if this doesn't make sense." Zara quickly bent down and retrieved the medicine bottle from under the broken glass, holding it up so he could see it clearly. A mother bear broke through that window to get this. She took it gently, carefully, like she knew exactly what it was for. "And that crying we're hearing, that's her cub, and it's sick, really sick." Marcus's eyebrows shot up. "Bears don't understand human medicine. They can't possibly know what acetaminophen is for." "Then explain what we just witnessed," Zara challenged. "Explain why she went straight for the children's fever reducer and nothing else. Explain why she's been pacing out there for 20 minutes, looking specifically at the pediatric section." As if to prove her point, the cub's cry echoed through the storm again, weaker than before. Marcus's professional instincts kicked in as he listened to the sound. His expression grew troubled. "That's not a healthy cry," he admitted. "That animal is in distress. Probably dehydrated, maybe running a high fever." "She knows," Zara said urgently. "Somehow she knows that medicine can help, but she doesn't know how much to give. She was waiting for help." Marcus ran his hands through his wet hair, leaving it sticking up at odd angles. "Even if what you're saying is true, we can't just let a wild bear roam around town. Someone could get hurt." "Someone is already hurt," Zara said, gesturing toward the woods. "Her baby is dying." The sound of approaching sirens cut through the night air. Marcus's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. "You didn't call the police?" "The alarm system is connected to the station," Zara explained. "They'll be here in 3 minutes, maybe less." Marcus looked at the broken window, then at the medicine bottle in Zara's hands, then toward the woods where the cub's cries were growing fainter. "This is insane," he muttered. "I could lose my license for this." "Or you could save a life," Zara said softly. The sirens grew louder, and they could see the flashing red and blue lights reflecting off the wet pavement outside. Marcus made a decision that surprised them both. He grabbed a dosing syringe from behind the pharmacy counter and held out his hand for the medicine bottle. "If we're going to do this, we do it right," he said. "What's the cub's approximate weight?" Zara's heart soared. "I saw it briefly when the mother was at the window. Maybe 15 pounds? Small for this time of year." Marcus quickly calculated the dosage, drawing the liquid medicine into the syringe. "This is for fever reduction only. It won't cure whatever's really wrong with it, but it might buy us time." The police cars pulled into the parking lot just as Marcus pocketed the syringe. 2 officers got out, their hands instinctively moving to their weapons when they saw the broken window. The lead officer, a woman with graying hair and tired eyes, approached the pharmacy entrance. "Evening, folks. We got a break-in alarm. Everyone okay?" Zara and Marcus exchanged glances. "We're fine, officer. Rodriguez, this is Officer Kim. Can you tell us what happened here?" Before Zara could answer, the cub cried out again, the sound barely audible now. Officer Rodriguez's head snapped toward the sound. her expression immediately changing from routine questioning to high alert. "Is that a child?" she asked, her hand moving to her radio. "It's a bear cub," Marcus said quickly, "and it's dying." Officer Kim laughed nervously. "A bear cub? In downtown Maplewood? Come on, Doc." But Officer Rodriguez was already moving toward the back of the building, following the sound. She'd been on the force for 20 years and had learned to trust her instincts. Something about the way the vet and the pharmacist were acting told her this was more complicated than a simple break-in. "Kim, call animal control," she instructed. "Tell them we might have a situation." "Wait," Zara called out. "Please, just give us 5 minutes to explain." Officer Rodriguez paused, studying their faces. 5 minutes, then I'm calling for backup. As quickly as they could, Zara and Marcus explained what had happened. The more they talked, the more skeptical Officer Kim became, but Rodriguez listened with growing interest. She'd grown up in these mountains and had seen enough wildlife behavior to know that desperate animals sometimes did unexpected things. "So, you're telling me," Officer Kim said when they finished, "that a bear broke into a pharmacy, stole medicine for her sick cub, and then politely left it here for you to dose properly." "That's exactly what I'm telling you," Zara said. The cub's cry came again, so weak now that they all held their breath to hear it. Officer Rodriguez made a decision that would change all their lives. "Kim, you stay here and secure the scene. Doc, you're with me. We're going to find that cub." "Ma'am, with all due respect, that's not protocol," Officer Kim protested. "Protocol doesn't cover this situation," Rodriguez replied. "Sometimes you have to use your judgment." Marcus grabbed a small flashlight from his keychain and followed Officer Rodriguez toward the back of the building. Zara started to follow, but Rodriguez held up a hand. "You stay here with Officer Kim. If something goes wrong, we need you to call for medical backup." As they disappeared into the darkness behind the pharmacy, Zara paced anxiously in front of the broken window. Officer Kim watched her with suspicious eyes. "You know this is crazy, right?" Kim said. "Bears don't understand medicine. They don't form emotional bonds with humans. They're wild animals." "Then explain what happened here tonight," Zara challenged, echoing her earlier words to Marcus. Before Kim could answer, they heard voices from the woods. Marcus calling out softly, "Easy, Mama. We're here to help." Then Rodriguez's voice, tight with amazement, "I don't believe what I'm seeing." The radio on Kim's shoulder crackled to life. "All units, be advised. We have reports of a large bear seen near the elementary school. Repeat, large bear spotted near Maplewood Elementary." Zara's blood ran cold. "That's 6 blocks from here. The mother bear must be searching for help." Officer Kim was already responding to the radio call, but Zara grabbed her arm. "You don't understand. She's not dangerous. She's desperate. If you corner her away from her cub, she'll fight." "All the more reason to get animal control out here," Kim replied, shaking off Zara's grip. From the woods came Marcus's voice, urgent now. "We found the cub. It's bad, really bad. We need to move fast." Officer Rodriguez's voice followed, barely controlled. "Kim, cancel that animal control call. We're dealing with something different here." "What do you mean, different?" Kim responded into her radio. "I mean, the mother bear is here and she's letting us approach her cub. She's not attacking. She's asking for help." Officer Kim stared at the radio as if it had spoken in a foreign language. "That's impossible." But from the woods, they could hear Marcus working, his voice calm and professional as he talked to both the cub and its mother. "It's okay, little one. This is going to help. And Mama, you did good. You did real good bringing us here." Zara felt tears streaming down her face as she listened to the one-sided conversation. Officer Kim lowered her radio, her expression changing from skepticism to wonder. "Rodriguez," Kim called into the radio. "What exactly are you seeing out there?" The response came back filled with amazement. "I'm seeing a mother bear holding her sick cub while a veterinarian gives it medicine. And Kim? She's not just allowing it, she's helping. She's actually helping him position the cub so he can get the medicine down its throat." Officer Kim sank into a chair behind the pharmacy counter, her worldview shifting with each word from the radio. "This isn't in any training manual I've ever read." Zara wiped her eyes and looked out at the storm, which was finally beginning to ease. "Some things can't be taught, Officer Kim. Some things you just have to experience to believe." 20 minutes later, Marcus and Officer Rodriguez emerged from the woods, both soaking wet and covered in mud, but with expressions of pure wonder on their faces. Behind them, moving slowly but steadily, came the mother bear, carrying her cub in her massive jaws like a cat carrying a kitten. "The medicine worked," Marcus announced, his voice filled with professional pride and personal amazement. "The fever broke 10 minutes ago. The cub is going to be fine." But the biggest shock was yet to come. As they watched, the mother bear gently set her cub down near the edge of the parking lot, then did something that made Officer Kim drop her radio completely. The massive bear walked directly up to Zara, who was standing in the doorway of the pharmacy, and sat down in front of her like an enormous, wild dog. For a moment that seemed to last forever, the bear and the pharmacist looked at each other. Then, in a gesture that defied everything they thought they knew about wild animals, the bear gently pressed her massive head against Zara's hand. "She's saying thank you," Zara whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. Officer Rodriguez cleared her throat, struggling to maintain her professional composure. "I've been a cop for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like this. This bear isn't just intelligent. She's grateful." The mother bear stood up, walked back to her cub, and gently nudged it to its feet. The little one was shaky but alert, its eyes bright again instead of glazed with fever. As they watched, mother and cub began walking slowly back toward the woods. But at the edge of the tree line, the mother bear stopped and looked back one more time. Her eyes found Zara's across the parking lot, and in that moment a bond was formed that transcended species, transcended everything they thought they understood about the world. Then she was gone, disappearing into the forest with her healthy cub, leaving 4 humans standing in the rain, forever changed by what they had witnessed. But the story was far from over. 3 hours later, Zara sat in the police station, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. The adrenaline had worn off, leaving her feeling drained and surreal, as if the events at the pharmacy had been some kind of vivid dream. Across from her, Officer Rodriguez was typing up a report that no one would believe, while Marcus paced the small room, still covered in mud and bear fur. "I keep thinking about her eyes," Zara said for the 3rd time. "The way she looked at me. It was like she was trying to tell me something more than just thank you." Marcus stopped pacing and turned to face her. "Animals communicate in ways we're only beginning to understand. What you saw tonight, at that level of cognitive reasoning, the ability to associate human medicine with healing, it's unprecedented." Officer Kim, who had been quietly reviewing security footage from the pharmacy's cameras, suddenly looked up with a strange expression. "You need to see this," she said, turning her laptop toward them. On the screen was grainy black and white footage from the pharmacy's exterior camera. The timestamp showed earlier that evening, before the break-in. But what they saw made them all lean forward in disbelief. The mother bear wasn't alone when she first approached the pharmacy. There were 2 cubs with her, not one. The footage showed her leading both babies to the edge of the parking lot, then gently nudging one of them toward a cluster of bushes near the building. The cub she hid appeared healthy, alert, and active. The other cub, the sick one, stayed close to its mother as she approached the window. She hid the healthy cub to protect it, Marcus breathed. She knew there was danger in what she was about to do, so she made sure only the sick one was with her. But that wasn't the most shocking part. As they continued watching the footage, they saw something that made Officer Rodriguez stand up so quickly, her chair rolled backward and hit the wall. The mother bear had done this before. The timestamp on an earlier segment of footage showed the same bear at the pharmacy 3 days ago. She had approached the window then too, but hadn't broken through. Instead, she had spent nearly an hour studying the interior of the pharmacy, seemingly memorizing the layout, identifying where the children's medicine was kept. She was planning this, Zara whispered. For 3 days, she was planning how to get medicine for her cub. Officer Kim scrolled through more footage, going back even further. What they found made them all fall silent. A week ago, the mother bear had been at the pharmacy again, but this time she wasn't alone. With her was an elderly male bear, massive and clearly experienced. The footage showed what appeared to be the older bear teaching the mother, pointing with his nose toward different parts of the building, showing her the various entrances and exits. "That's her father," Marcus said with certainty. "Or at least an older relative. In bear communities, knowledge gets passed down through generations. Somehow, this family of bears has learned to associate human buildings with medicine." The implications of what they were seeing hit Zara like a physical blow. This isn't the first time. Other bears in this family have gotten medicine from humans before. Officer Rodriguez was already on her radio, calling for access to reports from neighboring towns. What came back 20 minutes later confirmed their worst fears and greatest amazement. "Pinewood, 15 miles north," Rodriguez announced, reading from her notes. 2 years ago, break-in at a medical clinic. Nothing stolen except children's antibiotics. No arrests made because there were no human fingerprints and no witnesses. Cedar Falls, 30 miles east," she continued. 18 months ago, veterinary clinic broken into. Only animal antibiotics taken, specifically those used for respiratory infections in young animals. Again, no arrests. Marcus grabbed the notes from her hands, scanning them quickly. Mountain View, 8 months ago. Hospital pharmacy. Only pediatric fever reducers and anti-inflammatory medications taken. Security footage showed what appeared to be a large animal, but was dismissed as impossible. "They've been doing this for years," Zara said, her voice filled with wonder and horror. "There's a family of bears out there that has learned to steal medicine to save their sick cubs." But Officer Kim had found something even more disturbing in the police database. "Guys, look at this. Riverside County, just across the state line. 6 months ago. Similar break-in at a clinic, but this time there was a casualty." The room fell silent as she read the report. Local farmer found a dead bear cub near the clinic. Cause of death listed as pneumonia. But the interesting part is what was found with the body. An empty bottle of human antibiotics, completely drained. Marcus felt sick. The dosage was wrong. They didn't know how much to give. "And here's the really heartbreaking part," Kim continued. "The mother bear was found 3 days later, dead from what appeared to be a self-inflicted injury. She had repeatedly thrown herself against a tree until—" She couldn't finish the sentence, but they all understood. The mother bear had died of grief. "That's why our bear waited," Zara realized. That's why she didn't just take the medicine and run. She knew she needed help with the dosage. She learned from another family's tragedy. The weight of what they had witnessed was becoming clearer. They hadn't just saved one cub tonight. They had potentially prevented another family tragedy, and, more importantly, had established a new precedent for human-bear cooperation. Officer Rodriguez closed her laptop and looked at each of them in turn. We have a decision to make. Do we report this as an isolated incident and let animal control handle it, or do we recognize that we're dealing with something unprecedented? Before anyone could answer, the station's front desk officer knocked on the door. "Excuse me, but we've got a situation developing downtown. Multiple reports of a large bear near the elementary school, but here's the strange part. It's not acting aggressively. According to witnesses, it appears to be looking for something." Zara's heart sank. The healthy cub. She's looking for the healthy cub she hid. Marcus was already grabbing his jacket. If she can't find it, she'll panic. A panicked bear in a school zone. Everyone will want to shoot her, Rodriguez finished grimly. They raced out of the station and drove through the dark streets toward the elementary school. As they approached, they could see flashlights and the red and blue lights of patrol cars surrounding the area. The scene was controlled chaos, with officers trying to establish a perimeter while the mother bear paced frantically in the schoolyard. When Zara saw her, her heart broke. The massive bear was calling out, a low, mournful sound that carried clearly through the night air. She was searching desperately for her missing cub, becoming more agitated with each passing minute. "She's going to charge someone," Marcus warned. "When a mother can't find her baby, all rational behavior goes out the window." Officer Rodriguez radioed ahead to the scene commander, trying to explain the situation, but the response was immediate and harsh. "I don't care if it's Mother Teresa reincarnated as a bear. We have a dangerous animal in a school zone. Animal control is en route with tranquilizer guns." "How long until they arrive?" Rodriguez asked. 10 minutes. Zara made a decision that surprised even her. She opened the car door while they were still moving. "I'm going to talk to her." "Zara, no!" Marcus grabbed for her arm, but she was already out of the vehicle. "She knows me," Zara called back. "She trusts me." As she approached the police perimeter, Zara could hear the officers shouting at her to stay back, but she ignored them. The mother bear spotted her immediately, and, incredibly, her agitated pacing stopped. The massive animal stared at Zara for a long moment, then let out a soft whimper that sounded exactly like a plea for help. "I know," Zara said softly, walking slowly toward the bear despite the shocked protests from the officers around her. "I know you can't find your baby, but I think I know where he might be." The bear took a step toward Zara, and she could hear safeties being clicked off weapons around the perimeter. But instead of attacking, the mother bear did something that made everyone freeze. She sat down and tilted her head, exactly like a dog asking for help. "The pharmacy," Zara continued, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "You hid him near the pharmacy, didn't you? In those bushes where you thought he'd be safe." The bear's ears perked up at the word pharmacy, and she stood up, walking closer to Zara. When she was close enough to touch, the massive animal gently pressed her nose against Zara's outstretched hand. "Rodriguez," Zara called out, not taking her eyes off the bear. "We need to get back to the pharmacy, now." "Zara, step away from the animal," came a new voice. The animal control officer had arrived, and he was raising a tranquilizer gun. "Don't you dare," Zara said, stepping protectively in front of the bear. "This animal has done nothing wrong. She's just a mother looking for her baby. Ma'am, step aside. This is a dangerous wild animal in a residential area." The mother bear sensed the threat and moved to place herself between Zara and the man with the gun. But instead of preparing to attack, she did something that left everyone speechless. She lay down on her side and rolled over, exposing her belly in the ultimate gesture of submission and trust. "She's not dangerous," Zara said, her voice breaking with emotion. "She's asking for our help." The animal control officer lowered his weapon, his training warring with what he was seeing. This is impossible. Wild bears don't behave this way." "This bear does," Marcus said, having approached during the standoff. "And if we don't help her find her cub in the next few minutes, we're going to lose the most important opportunity for interspecies cooperation in recorded history." But even as they argued, time was running out. From somewhere in the distance came the sound of helicopter rotors. The news media had gotten wind of the story, and soon the entire area would be flooded with cameras and reporters. If they were going to help the mother bear find her cub, they had to act now. The question was, would the authorities let them try, or would fear and protocol prevent what could be the most important rescue mission any of them had ever attempted? The answer came from an unexpected source. Chief of Police Margaret Sullivan arrived on scene just as the helicopters began circling overhead, their spotlights cutting through the darkness. She was a small woman in her 50s, but her voice carried the authority of 3 decades in law enforcement. "What exactly is going on here?" she demanded, surveying the scene with sharp eyes that took in everything from the tranquilizer gun to Zara standing protectively near the bear. Officer Rodriguez quickly briefed her on the evening's events, but Chief Sullivan's expression grew more skeptical with each detail. When Rodriguez finished, Sullivan was quiet for a long moment, studying the mother bear who remained lying on her side in a gesture of complete trust. "Let me get this straight," Sullivan said finally. "We have a bear that breaks into a pharmacy to steal medicine for her sick cub, cooperates with a veterinarian to administer treatment, and is now asking for human help to find her other baby." "That's exactly right," Marcus said before anyone could stop him. Chief Sullivan walked closer to the bear, ignoring the protests from the animal control officer. The mother bear watched her approach but didn't move from her submissive position. When Sullivan was close enough to touch her, she crouched down and looked directly into the bear's eyes. "Well, I'll be damned," Sullivan murmured. "Rodriguez was right. There's intelligence here. Real intelligence." She stood up and addressed the crowd of officers that had gathered. "Here's what we're going to do. We're going to help this mother find her cub, but we're going to do it right, with full safety protocols and media management." The animal control officer stepped forward. "Chief, with all due respect, this sets a dangerous precedent. We can't have wild animals thinking they can just walk into town whenever they need something." "Can't we?" Sullivan asked pointedly. "Officer, in my 30 years of law enforcement, I've learned that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is ignore what's right in front of you because it doesn't fit your expectations." She turned to address Zara. "Miss Whitfield, you seem to have established a rapport with this animal. Are you willing to help us coordinate this search?" Zara nodded without hesitation. "Whatever it takes." "Dr. Chen, I assume you're on board as well?" Marcus straightened his shoulders. "Absolutely." Chief Sullivan spoke into her radio. "All units, we're implementing a controlled search protocol. I want a perimeter established around the pharmacy area, and I want every officer to understand that this bear is not to be considered hostile unless she demonstrates clear aggressive behavior." As they organized the search, something unexpected happened. The mother bear stood up and walked directly to Officer Rodriguez, gently nudging her hand with her massive nose. Rodriguez looked startled but didn't pull away. "I think she's trying to tell us something," Rodriguez said. She did this same thing to Zara earlier. The bear then did something that made everyone stop talking. She walked to the edge of the school parking lot and began digging in the soft earth with her claws. Within minutes, she had unearthed something that made Marcus gasp in amazement. It was a small bundle wrapped in what appeared to be leaves and twigs. As they watched, the bear carefully unwrapped the bundle with her teeth, revealing a collection of different medicines, pills through liquids and ointments, all human-made. "She's been collecting medicine," Zara breathed. "For how long?" Marcus knelt down to examine the cache. "Some of these expire dates go back 2 years. This bear has been systematically gathering medical supplies for her family." But that wasn't the most shocking discovery. At the bottom of the bundle was something that made Chief Sullivan call for immediate backup. It was a small, weathered journal, its pages protected by a plastic bag. The handwriting inside was human. "This belonged to Dr. Sarah Chen," Marcus said, reading the name on the first page. "She was a wilderness veterinarian who worked in this area about 5 years ago. She went missing during a research expedition and was never found." Chief Sullivan carefully took the journal and began reading aloud. The entries told an incredible story of a young veterinarian who had been injured in a fall while studying bear behavior in the remote wilderness. She had been found by a family of bears who, instead of attacking her, had brought her to their den and cared for her injuries. "Day 15, Sullivan read. "The mother bear brought me roots today that I recognize as having anti-inflammatory properties. She's been watching me treat my infected leg wound and seems to understand that certain plants help with healing. The intelligence these animals display is far beyond anything documented in scientific literature." "Day 23, she continued. "I've been teaching the older male bear to recognize different human medicines I had in my pack. He learns incredibly quickly and seems to understand the concept of dosage based on body weight. I believe he's passing this knowledge to the younger bears in the family group." The entries continued for 3 months, documenting an unprecedented relationship between human and bears. Dr. Chen had essentially established the first interspecies medical training program, teaching the bears to identify and use human medicines safely. "The final entry," Chief Sullivan said, her voice growing quiet. "Day 89. My rescue signal has finally been answered. Helicopter coming tomorrow morning, but I find myself reluctant to leave. These bears have become my family, and I've become their healer. I'm leaving this journal and my remaining medical supplies with them, hoping that someone, someday, will understand the incredible bond we've formed here." Marcus looked up from the journal with tears in his eyes. "The mother bear we're helping tonight. She was trained by Dr. Chen. That's how she knows about human medicine. That's how she knew to come to the pharmacy." But before anyone could fully process this revelation, Zara's phone rang. The caller ID showed an unknown number, but when she answered, the voice on the other end made her blood run cold. "Miss Whitfield? This is Dr. Richard Hawthorne from the State Wildlife Department. I understand you've been interfering with our wildlife management protocols. I've been helping a mother bear find her lost cub," Zara replied cautiously. "That bear is part of a problematic family group that we've been tracking for months. They've been involved in multiple break-ins across 3 counties. We have authorization to relocate or, if necessary, eliminate the threat." Zara's hand tightened on the phone. These bears aren't a threat. They're trying to survive, to take care of their families. "Miss Whitfield, you don't understand the bigger picture. This family of bears has been teaching other bear families their techniques. We now have reports of similar incidents in 6 different states. If we don't stop this behavior now, we'll have bears breaking into medical facilities across the entire region." The implications hit Zara like a physical blow. The bear family wasn't just surviving, they were spreading their knowledge to other bears, creating a network of animals that had learned to seek human medical help. "You're talking about wiping out an entire family because they're too intelligent," Zara said, her voice shaking with anger. "I'm talking about preventing a situation where wild animals begin to see human settlements as their personal pharmacies. The liability alone would be astronomical." Chief Sullivan took the phone from Zara's hands. "Dr. Hawthorne, this is Chief Sullivan, Maplewood PD. I think you need to see what we've discovered here before you make any permanent decisions." "Chief, I appreciate your concern, but this situation is now under state jurisdiction. We have teams en route to your location. The bear will be tranquilized and relocated within the hour." "And if she won't leave without her cub?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Then we'll handle the situation as we see fit." Chief Sullivan hung up the phone and looked at the group gathered around her. "We have maybe 45 minutes before the state teams arrive. If we're going to find that cub and reunite this family, it has to be now." The mother bear, as if sensing the urgency in their voices, stood up and began walking toward the pharmacy. But instead of her earlier desperate pacing, she moved with purpose, occasionally looking back to make sure the humans were following. "She's leading us," Marcus observed. "She knows exactly where she's going." As they followed the bear through the darkened streets, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking toward something much bigger than just finding one lost cub. They were approaching a moment that would define the relationship between humans and wildlife for generations to come. The question was, would they be remembered as the people who protected an extraordinary family, or as the ones who let fear destroy something miraculous? Behind them, the sound of approaching vehicles grew louder. The state wildlife teams were arriving ahead of schedule, and time was running out faster than anyone had anticipated. The mother bear seemed to sense this too, because she suddenly broke into a run, heading straight for the cluster of bushes behind the pharmacy where she had hidden her healthy cub hours earlier. But when they reached the hiding spot, what they found would change everything they thought they knew about this family of bears, and would force them to make a choice that would echo through the rest of their lives. The bushes were empty. The mother bear stood frozen at the edge of the hiding place, her massive head swinging back and forth as she searched desperately for any sign of her missing cub. A low, heartbroken moan escaped her throat, a sound so filled with anguish that it made Zara's chest tighten with pain. "He's not here," Marcus said unnecessarily, his voice heavy with dread. The mother bear began digging frantically in the soft earth, as if maybe her cub had burrowed deeper for warmth. Dirt and leaves flew in all directions as her powerful claws tore at the ground, but there was nothing there. No scent trail, no sign of struggle, no indication of where the healthy cub might have gone. Chief Sullivan was already on her radio, calling for an expanded search perimeter, when Zara noticed something that made her heart skip a beat. There, caught on a low branch about 20 feet from the hiding spot, was a tuft of fur. But it wasn't bear fur. It was gray and coarse, definitely from a different animal. "Marcus, look at this," she called, pointing to the fur. The veterinarian examined it carefully, his expression growing grim. Wolf fur. Recent, too, probably within the last few hours. The implications hit them all at once. While the mother bear had been at the pharmacy getting medicine for her sick cub, her healthy baby had been discovered by wolves. In the hierarchy of the forest, a lone cub was easy prey, especially for a hungry pack. The mother bear had found the fur too. She held it delicately in her massive paw, and the sound that came from her throat was unlike anything any of them had ever heard. It was grief so pure and devastating that Officer Rodriguez actually took a step backward. "We need to find that wolf pack," Chief Sullivan said grimly. Now. Chief, Marcus said carefully, if wolves took that cub, the chances of finding it alive— Don't, Zara interrupted fiercely. Don't say it. We don't know anything for certain yet. But even as she spoke, the sound of heavy vehicles filled the air. The state wildlife management teams had arrived, and they were setting up their equipment in the pharmacy parking lot. Bright floodlights suddenly illuminated the area, turning night into harsh, artificial day. Dr. Richard Hawthorne stepped out of the lead vehicle, a tall man with silver hair and the confident bearing of someone who'd never been told he was wrong. Behind him came a team of 6 wildlife officers, all carrying tranquilizer guns and heavy-duty capture equipment. Chief Sullivan, Hawthorne called out as he approached. I thought I made it clear that this situation was under state jurisdiction. Dr. Hawthorne, Sullivan replied, not moving from her position near the mother bear. I thought I made it clear that we've made some discoveries that change the nature of this situation. Hawthorne's eyes fell on the massive bear, who was still holding the tuft of wolf fur and making soft, grieving sounds. I can see the animal is distressed, but that doesn't change our protocols. We have authorization to remove this bear from the area immediately. Her cub is missing, Zara said, stepping forward. Taken by wolves, you can't separate her from her baby. Miss Whitfield, I presume? Hawthorne studied her with cold eyes. I've read your statement. Interesting fantasy about cooperative bear behavior, but hardly scientific evidence. Marcus pulled out Dr. Chen's journal and held it up. What about this? Scientific documentation of interspecies medical cooperation spanning 3 months. Hawthorne barely glanced at the journal. Dr. Chen was listed as missing, presumed dead. Any documents allegedly found would need extensive authentication before they could be considered valid scientific evidence. But before anyone could respond, something happened that stopped all conversation. From somewhere deep in the forest came a sound that made everyone's blood run cold. It was the howling of wolves, but there was something different about it, something wrong. The mother bear's head snapped up, her ears pricked forward as she listened intently. Then she did something that made Dr. Hawthorne take an involuntary step backward. She stood on her hind legs and let out a roar so powerful that it echoed off the buildings and seemed to shake the very ground beneath their feet. What is she doing? One of the wildlife officers asked nervously. She's calling, Marcus said with growing amazement. She's calling for help. The wolf howling stopped abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence that seemed to stretch on forever. Then, from multiple directions in the forest, came answering calls. Not wolf howls, but bear roars. Deep, powerful sounds that spoke of massive animals responding to a distress call. How many bears are out there? Hawthorne asked, his confidence beginning to waver. Chief Sullivan was counting the different roar patterns. At least 6, maybe more. But the most shocking development was yet to come. As they listened to the symphony of bear calls echoing through the forest, a new sound joined them. It was higher-pitched, weaker, but unmistakable. The cry of a cub. The mother bear heard it too. Her entire body went rigid with attention, and she began moving toward the sound with purposeful determination. But she wasn't alone. Other shapes were emerging from the forest darkness, massive shadows that resolved into the forms of other bears. It's the whole family, Marcus breathed. She called the whole family. Dr. Hawthorne was speaking urgently into his radio, calling for backup. But Chief Sullivan grabbed his arm. Wait, look at what's happening. The bears were organizing themselves. The largest male, easily 8 feet tall when he reared up, positioned himself at the front of the group. 2 smaller females flanked the mother bear on either side, offering support and protection. and at the rear, an elderly female moved with the careful dignity of the family matriarch. They're going after the wolves, Marcus realized. They're going to rescue the cub. We can't allow this, Hawthorne said firmly. A confrontation between bears and wolves in a residential area could be catastrophic. More catastrophic than breaking up a family that's trying to save their baby? Zara challenged. Before Hawthorne could respond, the bear family began moving into the forest as a coordinated unit. The mother bear paused at the edge of the tree line and looked back at the humans one more time. Her eyes found Zara's, and in that moment, a communication passed between them that was deeper than words. "She wants us to follow," Zara said with certainty. "Absolutely not," Hawthorne snapped. "No civilians are going into those woods with a pack of agitated bears." But Chief Sullivan was already making a decision that would define her career. "Doctor, Chen, you're with me. Rodriguez, Kim, your backup. Everyone else maintains perimeter." "Chief, I cannot allow this," Hawthorne said, stepping into her path. Sullivan looked him directly in the eyes. "Dr. Hawthorne, with all due respect, this is still my jurisdiction until your paperwork clears my desk, and that paperwork seems to have gotten lost in my filing system. As the bears disappeared into the forest, the humans found themselves at a crossroads. They could follow protocol, let the state teams handle the situation, and likely never know what happened to the missing cub. Or they could trust in something unprecedented and follow a family of bears into the darkness to witness what might be the most extraordinary rescue mission in recorded history. The decision was made when they heard the cub cry out again, weaker this time, but closer. The mother bear's family was already on the move, and time was running out. "I'm going," Zara announced, starting toward the forest. Marcus caught up with her. "You're not going alone." Chief Sullivan shouldered a flashlight and followed them both. "Rodriguez, you're with us. Everyone else maintain radio contact." Dr. Hawthorne watched them disappear into the woods, then turned to his team with a grim expression. "Call for additional backup. If this goes wrong, we're going to need search and rescue teams for the humans and capture teams for every bear in these woods." But as the state wildlife team set up their equipment, something was happening in the forest that would challenge everything they thought they knew about animal behavior, family loyalty, and the bonds that transcend species. The hunt for the missing cub was about to reveal secrets that had been hidden in these woods for generations, and the confrontation that awaited them would force everyone involved to question the very nature of intelligence, compassion, and what it truly means to be wild. In the darkness ahead, the sound of the cub's cries grew more urgent, and the responding roars of the bear family grew closer. Whatever was about to happen in the depths of the forest would either be the most beautiful example of interspecies cooperation ever witnessed, or the most tragic misunderstanding between humans and wildlife in the region's history. The only certainty was that none of them would ever be the same after tonight. Deep in the forest, following the sound of increasingly urgent cub cries, the unlikely rescue party moved through the darkness like something out of a dream. The bear family led the way with silent grace, their massive forms somehow managing to move through the undergrowth without making a sound. Behind them, Zara, Marcus, Chief Sullivan, and Officer Rodriguez struggled to keep up, their flashlights creating dancing shadows that seemed to bring the forest to life around them. The mother bear stopped suddenly, raising her massive head to scent the air. Her family immediately froze, waiting for her signal. In the distance, they could hear the low growls and yips of wolves, and underneath it all, the weak but persistent crying of her missing cub. Marcus checked his watch. They had been walking for nearly 20 minutes, moving deeper into wilderness than any of them had ever ventured. Behind them, the lights of town had disappeared completely, swallowed by the thick canopy of ancient trees. Ahead, an orange glow flickered through the forest. Firelight. Someone's camping out here, Chief Sullivan whispered into her radio. The bear family had noticed the fire too. The large male who led them gestured with his massive head toward the light, and the other bears began to spread out, surrounding whatever lay ahead. It was a coordinated, military-style maneuver that spoke of intelligence far beyond what any of them had imagined possible. As they crept closer, the scene that unfolded before them made everyone stop breathing. Around a small campfire sat an elderly man with a long white beard, wearing clothes that looked like they hadn't been washed in months. But he wasn't alone. Curled up in his lap, being bottle-fed with what appeared to be warm milk, was the missing bear cub. The wolves were there too, a pack of 6, lying peacefully around the campfire like oversized dogs. And, as impossible as it seemed, they were taking turns gently licking the cub clean, as if it were one of their own puppies. "What in the world?" Officer Rodriguez breathed. The old man looked up as the bear family emerged from the shadows, but instead of fear, his weathered face broke into a warm smile. "Well, hello there, Mama," he said softly to the mother bear. "I was wondering when you'd come looking for this little one." The mother bear approached slowly, her eyes fixed on her cub. The wolves made no aggressive moves, simply watched as she came closer. When she was within touching distance, the old man gently lifted the cub and offered it to her. "Found him wandering about 4 hours ago," the man explained, as naturally as if he were discussing the weather with neighbors over a fence. "Looked hungry and scared, so I brought him back to camp. The wolves found us about an hour later, but instead of causing trouble, they seemed to want to help take care of him." The mother bear took her cub gently in her massive jaws and held him close, checking him over for any injuries. The little one immediately began nuzzling against her, clearly unharmed but exhausted from his adventure. Marcus stepped forward carefully. "Sir, I'm Dr. Marcus Chen. Do you live out here?" The old man chuckled, a sound like wind through pine trees. "Name's Thomas, Dr. Thomas Whitehorse. And yes, I suppose you could say I live here, have been for about 8 years now." Chief Sullivan's eyes widened. "Dr. Whitehorse? You're the wildlife biologist who disappeared during that research expedition. You've been declared legally dead." "Well, that's a bit premature," Thomas said with another chuckle. "Though I can understand the confusion. I did decide to stay out here permanently after my official research ended. You see, I discovered something out here that changed everything I thought I knew about animal intelligence and social cooperation." He gestured to the wolves, who were now lying peacefully next to the bear family, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. These animals have been living in cooperation for generations. Bears, wolves, even the occasional mountain lion. They've developed a system of mutual aid that defies everything we think we know about predator relationships. Zara found her voice. "The medicine. The bears learning to use human medicine. You taught them?" "Not just me," Thomas replied. "My colleague, Dr. Sarah Chen, started the work before her rescue, but yes, over the years, I've continued to help them understand how human medicine can supplement their natural healing methods. What you witnessed tonight at the pharmacy wasn't desperation. It was a calculated decision based on years of accumulated knowledge." The implications of what he was saying hit them all at once. This wasn't just one family of bears with unusual intelligence. This was an entire ecosystem that had evolved beyond anything science had documented. Marcus pulled out Dr. Chen's journal. "We found this. Sarah's research notes." Thomas's eyes filled with tears as he recognized the journal. "She left that for me when she was rescued. Said someday someone would need to understand what we'd discovered here. I've been adding to it for 8 years, documenting the most extraordinary interspecies cooperation you can imagine." As if to prove his point, one of the wolves gently nudged the bear cub with its nose, and the little one playfully swatted back with tiny paws. The adult bears and wolves watched this interaction with what could only be described as fond amusement. "Dr. Whitehorse," Chief Sullivan said carefully, "there are state wildlife teams back in town with authorization to relocate or eliminate this bear family. They consider them a threat because they've been teaching other bears to seek human medical help." Thomas's expression darkened. "Eliminate them? These animals have developed a medical knowledge system that could revolutionize our understanding of animal intelligence. They've created a peaceful multi-species society that humans could learn from." He stood up slowly, his joints creaking with age and years of outdoor living. "And they've been quietly protecting this area from real threats for years. Drug runners, illegal hunters, poachers, they all avoid these woods because of the reputation these animals have built." Zara's radio crackled to life. "Chief Sullivan, this is Dr. Hawthorne. We're tracking your location and we'll be moving in with tranquilizer teams in 10 minutes. Thomas heard the transmission and sighed deeply. I suppose it was inevitable that the outside world would eventually find us. But the mother bear had heard it too, and she began making soft sounds to her family. The other bears immediately began moving, gathering around Thomas as if protecting him. The wolves joined them, forming a defensive circle around the campfire. "They won't let anything happen to you," Thomas said, looking at the assembled animals with deep affection. "In their society, I'm family." Marcus made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. He stepped into the circle of animals and looked directly at Thomas. "Dr. Whitehorse, what if you weren't missing anymore? What if you came back and helped us document what you've learned here, official documentation that could protect these animals legally?" "And what about the immediate threat?" Chief Sullivan asked. Thomas looked around at his unlikely family, bears, wolves, and now humans all standing together in the flickering firelight. "I think it's time for the world to see what's really possible when species choose cooperation over conflict." He reached into his backpack and pulled out a thick notebook, its pages filled with 8 years of observations. This contains documentation of medical knowledge sharing, conflict resolution, resource management, and social cooperation that will rewrite textbooks on animal behavior. The sound of approaching voices echoed through the forest. Dr. Hawthorne's team was getting closer. "Here's what we're going to do," Chief Sullivan announced with the authority of someone who had just realized she was about to make the most important decision of her career. "Dr. Whitehorse, you're officially no longer missing. Dr. Chen, you're documenting everything. Miss Whitfield, you're our witness, and these animals are now under official protection as subjects of groundbreaking scientific research." When Dr. Hawthorne and his team finally reached the campfire, what they found stopped them in their tracks. A missing scientist who had been declared dead 8 years ago was sitting peacefully by a fire, surrounded by a mixed group of bears and wolves who showed no aggression toward the humans present. And in his hands was research documentation that would change wildlife management policies forever. "Dr. Hawthorne," Chief Sullivan said calmly, "I'd like you to meet Dr. Thomas Whitehorse, lead researcher on the most significant animal intelligence study ever conducted. And these are his research subjects." The mother bear, still holding her rescued cub, looked directly at Dr. Hawthorne. But instead of the wild, dangerous animal he had expected to confront, he saw intelligence, dignity, and a mother's gratitude for the humans who had helped reunite her family. In that moment, Dr. Hawthorne's entire understanding of wildlife management shifted. These weren't dangerous animals to be controlled or eliminated. They were beings capable of complex thought, emotional depth, and interspecies cooperation that offered hope for a world where humans and wildlife could coexist in ways no one had ever imagined. 6 months later, the Maplewood Wildlife Cooperation Reserve was established, the first of its kind in the world. Dr. Thomas Whitehorse served as its director, with Dr. Marcus Chen as head veterinarian and Zara Whitfield as community liaison. The research conducted there attracted scientists from around the globe, eager to study the remarkable society that had evolved in those mountains. The mother bear and her family became ambassadors for a new understanding of animal intelligence. The sick cub grew into a healthy juvenile, and the rescued cub grew up knowing that in times of need, help could come from the most unexpected places. But perhaps the most remarkable outcome was that the cooperation documented in those woods began to spread. Other wildlife areas reported similar instances of interspecies cooperation, as if the knowledge itself was somehow spreading through animal communities across the continent. And on quiet evenings at the reserve, visitors could sometimes witness something that still brought tears to Zara's eyes: the sight of the mother bear gently pressing her massive head against Thomas's hand, a gesture of trust and gratitude that bridged the gap between human and wild, proving that love and compassion truly know no boundaries. The broken pharmacy window was never repaired. Instead, it was replaced with a plaque that read, "Sometimes the most beautiful acts of love require us to break through the barriers that separate us from those who need our help." And in the reserve's visitor center, Dr. Sarah Chen's journal sits in a place of honor, open to the page where she wrote, "Today, I learned that intelligence is not uniquely human, and that compassion is the language that all living beings understand." The story of the mother bear who crashed through a pharmacy window to save her cub became more than just a tale of animal desperation. It became proof that in a world too often divided by fear and misunderstanding, love remains the most powerful force for bringing all living beings together.